Welcome to Betting Weekly WTA, the women's tennis betting podcast, brought to you in association with Bet Rivers. I'm Rory Jiwani. With me is Nigel Seeley. One tournament to look forward to, and it's a big one. The WTA 1000 China Open in Beijing, where Coco Gauff defends her title. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube and your favourite podcast provider, and follow us on social media. The handle is @BecauseWeWin. And if you like what you hear on our shows, sign up for the newsletter, get exclusive tips and the free Insider magazine. Sign up for free at bettingweeklystudios.com. Nigel, last week, I think when you looked at the trends last week ahead of the Korea Open, you said the top seeds tend to go well, and so it proved. Iga Swiatek, top seed, just beating Ekaterina Alexandrova, the number 2 seed in the final. I mean, we didn't think either represented value, so we looked elsewhere. This week, no Aryna Sabalenka in Beijing. She's got a slight injury. What are your feelings about this tournament coming up?
Well, firstly, let's look at last week. And obviously, it's another disappointing result on the outright market. But we went for a 20-1 shot and a 150-1 shot. 151 shot got beat in the quarterfinals. And Schneider was really poor. I thought she was really, really poor. So that was a bad performance from her. I mean, just to show you the highlights, when we did the preview show last week, I was trying to make some value in the bottom half of the draw. I made the case for the number 1 and number 2 seeds doing very, very well. And gave you the stats as you just touched on there. But when we did the preview show, Alexandrova was plus 350 with Bet Rivers. I think she was plus 350 or maybe even plus 450. Yeah. But she was around about plus 350, plus 450 on the winner market. She got through to the final, beat Bosson, Sidel, Siniakova. And then in the final, she was $6. So she was almost double the price that she was at the start of the tournament when she went to the final. So it just shows you, I mean, the only move really from last week was to bet Iga Swiatek. She was minus 110 at the start, around about even money. And in the final, she was minus $8. But she made you sweat. I mean, in play, she hit plus 150, plus 170, even bigger, probably 2-1 at one stage. She come through a match, but she was far from convincing against Alexandrova. And if you were looking at a player to take out from that tournament, Alexandrova was the player to take out from that tournament. But she put a lot into it last week. And, a lot of people might look at her this week. But I think that run, that final, that disappointment may make her a little bit of a fade. With regard to this tournament, as you said, it's a big event. It's a 1,000 event. There's only a few thousands of the year. All the big players there, barring Sabalenka. I know she's injured, but I saw her Instagram yesterday of her on a bikini. Going on a speedboat somewhere with her boyfriend. She didn't look that injured to me, but she looked very good, I must admit. But she was out on the speedboat yesterday, sunning it up. I think she was out in Greece somewhere, but she was out there. But it's an interesting one because it's the end of the year. A lot of these players have had a lot of tennis. Some of these players are coming back from lengthy layoffs. Kimberly Zheng is obviously someone who's come back from a lengthy layoff in front of her home crowd. Can she come back and win an event here? So there's question marks to be had. And Buku, obviously, another player's won a 1,000 event this year and disappointed at the US Open, first tournament since the US Open. So it's a very funny time. And I'm not making excuses because it's a bad year, but I do think this time of the year is difficult. Players have just played as well in the Billie Jean Cup. And I think if you look at the statistics on the Billie Jean Cup and then coming into this tournament, if you look at that, centre players do not do very well. The same in the men's with the Laver Cup as well. So I think it's a difficult one. The court surface is interesting. Some of them want it quick, some of them want it slow. But it's that funny season of the women's draw where it's been a funny season all year, but it's that funny time where I think that we'll keep our bets to a minimum and give you the angles of where potentially there's some value, and hopefully we can get a bit of luck, which we haven't had on the show, and get a deep run from some of our players.
Absolutely. As you say, it's a 1,000. It's a 96-player draw. All 32 seeds receive a bye into the second round. No Sabalenka or Madison Keys. They're the only two missing from the top 10. As you say, Qinwen Zheng's back in action, as is Mira Andreeva. Court conditions. This event played on the slow side of medium last year. Service hold percentage was 63.7. It was 66.1 the year before. I actually watched some of the qualification matches this morning. I mean, it wasn't quick. I mean, that was it wasn't painfully slow, but what I saw didn't suggest it was particularly fast. As I mentioned, Coco Gauff's the defending champion. She beat Karolina Muchova in last year's final. Iga Swiatek defeated Ludmila Samsonova in 2023. Now, that was after a gap in the tournament. You had COVID and you had the concerns with the former player Peng Shuai, so China was off the tour for a little while. Then you have to go back to 2019 when Naomi Osaka beat Ashley Barty in the final. In 2018, Caroline Wozniacki defeated Anastasija Sevastova. And in 2017, Caroline Garcia beat Simona Halep. Weather-wise, it's going to be pretty warm, approaching 30 Celsius, so that's mid-80s Fahrenheit. Thankfully, the humidity is quite low. Nigel, any pointers, sort of historic trends, perhaps the sort of player we're looking for? I think the court speed being kind of sort of slow medium, that does sort of bring a lot of players into the equation.
Yeah, obviously, you're looking at events here where people, we had a lot of lengthy layoff after COVID here. So there's a couple of trends. I looked at how people have fared. Did they play a tournament before the US Open, or did they come here straight from the US Open? If we look at last year, Gauff decided to not play an event apart from Beijing after the US Open, and she won the event. So that you would argue that was a rest period. In 2023, Iga Swiatek played in Tokyo, got beat in round 2, and then went on to win this tournament. And in 2019, Naomi Osaka won the pre-event in Osaka. Ironically, Osaka winning Osaka, and then she went and won the tournament in Beijing. So that's a form line for what Iga Swiatek did. She's won the tournament before and then coming here. But obviously, it's very hard to win back-to-back tournaments on the WTA tour, and it's very hard to win WTA tournaments at the back of the end of the season. But Osaka did that in 2019. If we look at the last 10 years here, last 5 years, an unseeded player has either won it or been in the final in 4 of the last 5 years. But prior to that, it was dominated by seeded players, lots of seeded players getting to the final, but not the many number one seeds. The last number one seed to win this was in 2013, which was Serena Williams. And the year before that, in 2012, Victoria Azarenka won it as a number one seed. But they were the last number one seeds to win it. Gauff was seeded number 4 last year. In the last 10 years, only one unseeded player has won it, which was Caroline Garcia in 2017. But Muchova was unseeded when she made the final last year. Samsonova was unseeded when she made the final in 2023. Sevastova was unseeded in 2018. So unseeded players in recent years, get a run. Semi-finalists have been unseeded, finalists have been unseeded. So if you're looking at a player outside the top 32 seedings, at the end of the year, these are the kind of tournaments that you might get a run at someone at a very, very big price. I don't know who it will be, but you might get a run from someone at a very, very big price. But number one seeds haven't won this tournament since 2013, which was Serena Williams.
Yeah, that's interesting because the draw. Now, maybe Sabalenka had a premonition of the draw she might have had before pulling out. And obviously, Swiatek's now the number one seed because Q1 looks absolutely stacked. Swiatek seeded to meet Jessica Pegula in the quarterfinals, but also in there are Naomi Osaka, Anna Kalinskaya, who should have beaten Swiatek at the US Open. You've got 2023 runner-up Samsonova, Emma Navarro's there, Marta Kostyuk's there, Emma Raducanu's there. So they're all in Q1. In Q2, Mira Andreeva is seeded to meet Qinwen Zheng in the quarterfinals, but you've also got Victoria Mboko and Clara Towson in Q2. Q3, Jasmine Paolini and Amanda Anisimova are seeded to meet in the quarterfinals. Last year's runner-up Karolina Muchova and Paula Badosa could be the main dangers in that Q3. And then Q4, the quarterfinal could be Jelena Rybakina against reigning champion Coco Gauff. Alexandrova's in that quarter, as is Iva Jovic and Leylah Fernandez. Let's have a look at the outright betting. And as you can see, Iga Swiatek, the favourite at plus 210. Amanda Anisimova and Coco Gauff, both $7. Rybakina, $9. Andreeva and Osaka, $10. Jasmine Paolini, just coming back from winning the Billie Jean King Cup. She's $20 along with Karolina Muchova. Jessica Pegula and Qinwen Zheng, $22. Elina Svitolina, $25. Towson and Mboko, $30. Alexandrova, you mentioned her as a one to watch perhaps this week after sold. She's $33 and it's $50 bar those. Where do we start, Nigel? Maybe Q1. I mean, we've said this quite a few times this season, really tough draw, but, the good players do tend to get through them. Swiatek, are you a backer or a fader?
Well, I mean, she battled back against Alexandrova, but that was an epic match. She didn't have it all her own way, and any other given day, I think she would have lost that match. But she did show tremendous courage to come back and win that after losing the first set 6-1. But I think, I like to work out the probabilities of each player and work out their mathematical chance to get through to the final and the semi-finals. And I think plus 210 is a bit smidging lower than what he should do if you're better to win individual matches. As you say, she should breeze through the first match again, putting us over with Jan. I think that's pretty easy. Kalinskaya is a tough match. Kalinskaya should have beaten her. Then you have Samsonova, who she'd want it probably a little bit more quicker, and or Navarro, but I think Swiatek will get through there. But the one I think if Naomi Osaka plays her in this part of the world, I think Osaka's, she showed some really good form at the US Open. And I think that will be a tough ask for her. But obviously, Osaka's still got to get through Kostyuk, Raducanu, who's playing exceptionally well, Jessica Pegula, who's coming from the Billie Jean King Cup. So I think that's a very, very difficult Q1. I think Q1 is really hard, and I think Q4 is really hard. I think if you're concentrating for sort of value purposes, I think Q2 and Q3 perhaps is where you want to go. If we step into Q2, I like Mira Andreeva, actually. I probably won't bet her, but she's not going to be in my official play. But I think if the conditions are a little bit slower, it will suit her. She hasn't played since the US Open, which is a good form guide if you were looking at how Goff won it last year. But she was beaten comprehensively by Taylor Townsend. She got beat by Benčić at Wimbledon, got beat by Kessler at Montreal, but I think she may have been a little bit burnt out at a young age. I think she played a lot of tennis, did really well, won 2 1,000 events, and suddenly she just was a bit tired at a young age. Now with the rest, now coming in at conditions where I think will suit her a bit slower, I think she's got a big chance here. But I want to watch a couple of matches from her first to see whether she is at her best. Obviously, I expect her fairly comfortably to get through to the quarterfinals, and then she could run into Zheng if she's playing well with the home support, Mbuku, the Canadian champion, Clara Towson. So I think that's a relatively easy-ish quarter for Andreeva, but I wouldn't bet her now because I'd like to see how she performs this week. Another thing I just did too. I did some little stats on the 1000s this year. Only 2 people have won 2 1000s out of the 8 1000s, and that was Sabalenka and Andreeva. And 4 other women have only won 1. So in 8 1000s this year, when you consider Iga Swiatek would probably be around about the price she is here, plus 210. She's only won 1, which was in Cincinnati. So if you've been betting Iga Swiatek in 1000 events, you will definitely be losing money. Andreeva's been the most profitable player in 1000 events this year. Do you know the other 4 people who've won in a 1000 event other than Sabalenka and Andreeva?
Well, you mentioned Swiatek and Mbuku. Who else would have won 1? Oh God, I can't even remember now. Anisimova
won in Doha in Qatar, okay. And the other one was Paolini won in Italy. So there's been 6 different winners of 1000 events on the women's tour. Which, if you go back through last season, the season before, it's never usually 6. They're usually dominated by 2 or 3 players. That's a lot of different players. And obviously you've got one here where you could get someone new on the board as well. So in slower conditions, the slowest conditions there, Indian Wells was slow. Andreeva won it. Dubai was very slow this year. Andreeva won it. I think the slower conditions will suit her. The rest will suit her. But I would like to watch her. We'll probably do a show in the week. And if Andreeva's doing well, then I might add her to my portfolio if she's still in the competition. And usually by the midweek, outright pick is out anyway, so I might have to add someone fresh. But I think Andreeva's got a chance here. Do you want me to carry on to the bottom half?
Yeah, go for the bottom half.
Okay, I think the bottom half is slightly easier than the top half. So if we go to Q4, Rybakina was certainly on my radar here. In the Billie Jean Cup, she absolutely pulverised Jessica Pegula. She was brilliant in that match, and that was a pick of match. That was a real statement. I think out of all the players on the tour, she's probably going to be one of the fittest because she's missed a long period of it with injuries. She was so consistent going into the US Open, semi-finals of Washington, semi-finals of Montreal, semi-finals of Cincinnati. She looked like she was getting back to somewhat of her best. Fairly disappointed in the US Open getting beat by Vondrousova. But Vondrousova had a brilliant day that day. The match before, she absolutely, again, blew Raducanu away. If it's quick, which we're worried about, Rebecca is a definite contender. She could probably play Goff in the quarterfinals, but Goff needs it slow, very, very slow. Working with the new coach, terrible season. Problems with the serve at odds of 7-1. I couldn't bet Goff, this current version of Coco Goff. So that leads me to Q3, where I believe that I think Paolini will be absolutely exhausted after winning the Billie Jean Cup. She keeps saying Billie Jean King. It's Billie Jean King. I keep thinking of the Michael Jackson song. Yeah. The Billie Jean King Cup. I think she'll be quite emotionally exhausted by that. Guiding her, played a lot of tennis, and then come in here through 1,000. I think that may be a problem for her, which means that it's opened up the draw for me for Amanda Anisimova. So at 7-1 with Bet Rivers, Anisimova is going to be my 1 point each way pick here. She's got a bye in round 1. In round 2, she plays Katie Bolter or Hailey Baptiste. Bolter leads 3-0 on the head-to-head records. You want to talk about that match in a minute. Then she'll play Wang. I think she'll beat Wang. Then it's Mukova. She leads Mukova 1-0 in the head-to-heads. Then potentially Paolini. She leads Paolini 1-0 in the head-to-heads. And she beat her 6-2, 6-1 on a clay court. You know, and that's in the head-to-head. So that's Paolini's best surface. And then that's her route to the semi-finals. In the semi-finals, Rebecca or Goff. But I think this girl's got so much confidence about her now. Beating Iga Swiatek at the US Open after what happened at Wimbledon has changed her focus. That was an incredible performance. I thought she was really unlucky in the final of the US Open. She's managing her schedule really, really well. She's not playing a lot of tennis. She's going to the US Open, rested herself, spent time with her family, come in here. She's an 1,000 champion. She's up to number 4 in the world. I think she's the most improved player on the women's tour this year. It's just a matter of time, I think, before she has a major. I think next year she'll win a major. She's moving in the direction. She's working on her mental health so strong. I mean, this is a young girl that had problems with her mental health, but the way she bounced back to beat Iga Swiatek after that Wimbledon final just shows someone with tremendous mental ability. At the similar price to Coco Gauff, I think these two players are worlds apart on the moment in their match. I think the conditions will suit. She's got the power to out-hit anybody from the back of the court. I think she's a multi-surface player now, and she is going to be my bet. 1 point each way. Amanda Anisimova at 7-1 to win in Beijing.
Yeah, we'll double that. I like Anisimova as well. I mean, when you consider that she beat Swiatek in conditions which wouldn't be that dissimilar, in New York. And I think, sort of her body of work, if you like, over the last few months stands up to anyone. Even Sabalenka, who, as you say, that US Open final could have gone either way. I think conditions are a bit slow, but as you say, she can hit through anyone on any surface. I watched, perhaps the only sort of disappointment she's had of late was her defeat to Alyna Svitolina in Montreal in the quarterfinals. And she was hitting winners galore. She was just making lots of errors. That's kind of when you've got that sort of game, that can happen now and again. But I think on the whole, her form has been extremely impressive. And I think her draw is favourable. If you're looking at Swiatek plus 210 and Anisimova $7, Anisimova's the bet without a doubt.
I think if you look at Anisimova and Gauff, Gauff has got to play Rybakina. She's got to play Alexandrova's in there as well. I mean, she's got a fairly comfortable route to the quarterfinals, but Gauff is playing so poor, and Anisimova's playing the best tennis of her career. Yeah. So they're form guide at the moment. They're the same price. I think we're betting on Gauff on what we saw last year. Obviously, it's a new coach; they could change, but I think that's the angle for me.
Yeah. God, it seems mad that Goff did win the French Open. It feels like such a long time ago. She hasn't done much of it, but I'm kind of a bit wary because last year she came to Beijing in pretty poor form. And I remember watching her during that tournament and she was still in poor form. And then suddenly it clicked. I mean, I think she got to the final without playing very well. And then she thrashed Mukova, which is just a bad matchup for Mukova. I mean, Goff has all the answers whenever they play. But she was incredible against Mukova and very average before that. So I'm a little bit wary of that, but I couldn't possibly back her at $7. I'm with you on Anisimova. Looking at those quarters, we talked about the quarters. I mean, Q2 is probably the weakest, and Andreeva would be, the favourite to get out of that. But I think, is she going to rediscover that form from early in the season? Qinwen Zheng, I think she had elbow surgery. She should be one to avoid, I think.
I think the interesting one in that question, in that section, is Mbuko, isn't it? I mean, is she? There's no doubt about it that she's going to be a star. But was the Canada tournament a bit of a Raducanu US Open moment, or probably going a bit OTT there? She's obviously slightly better than that. But after that, she disappointed massively.
Well, she's had a wrist problem. She really struggled, and as we know, wrist problems take a while to get over. And I think she's one to just watch for the moment until, maybe the time off has aided that recovery. But, she is very talented. But
this was a player
next year.
This was a player, though, that was in qualification for tournaments. She was in qualification for Wimbledon. She was in qualification for French Open. She's won 1,000. She's suddenly number 22 in the world. So maybe that she's been absolutely accelerated her rise up to the rankings there, where her level might not be where she's at, and that's my worry. I don't think she'll be able to replicate what she did in Canada with that home crowd behind her and things like that. So I like Andreeva, but I'm just slightly worried about the length. When you've had a bit of a time off, you tend to find that you usually get beat earlier, you go on and win it. There's no in between. So I'd like to see her come through her opening matches, but I do think she's got a very, very comfortable join. I mean, she's got Jastrzębska possibly in the round of 32. I mean, that's a very in fact. And then the seeded player she'll play in the last 16, if it is the seeded player. Schneider, who last week was awful, or Kazatkina, who also last week was awful. And then she's in the quarterfinals where she could either play Mbuku or Zheng. I mean, both of them recovering from injury. So that's a very. I'm talking myself into. I'm gonna have a unit each way on the Andreeva 10-1 as well. Got to do
the
it.
Draw is favourite.
It's very easy. Like, I've got. What's the point of saying I'm going to bet her now and wins that 5-1? I'm going to take. I think I've talked myself into it. I think that's a very, very favourable draw. And she's young enough. The recovery period. I think she's managed obviously by Conchita Martinez, who knows the game and knows what to do with these young players. Yeah, I think Andreeva is she's got the best record on 1,000s, 2 winners this year. Better record in 1,000s as Sabalenka, and as good as that. Better than Iga Swiatek, and she's double figures. Yeah, and Mira Andreeva 10-1.
There we go. My other pick, I think Q3 is winnable, as we say. I do like Anisimova, but I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit with Karolina Mukova.
I knew we were going.
Yeah, well, she reached the final last year. She was unseeded. She's seeded 13 this year.
Unlucky for some, Rory.
Yeah, well, it's only going to be half a point each way on Mukova, but I've seen enough from her in the last few weeks and months to suggest that she's coming back to form. She wasn't quite there in the US Open, but she played well. She reached the quarterfinals. She was struggling a little bit by the end of it. She's had some more time off, and that Q3. I don't think, apart from Anisimova in the quarterfinals, no, it would be a round of 16. She's not got much to beat. And I think whoever wins that match out of Anisimova and Mukova in the last 16 gets through to the final. Because I think it's going to be too slow for Rybakina in Q4. And also with Rybakina, she's just, and I said it during the US Open, she just has a trouble stringing together two really good performances. So she was excellent against, Raducanu at the US Open, and then Vondrousova, she wasn't so good. I mean, Vondrousova was very good that day, but I just think she's just not someone you can really trust to string it together for a whole tournament, and not a 1,000. And even though, looking at her draw, I mean, she could have Eva Jovic in the round of 32. Alexandrova in the round of 16 would be tricky. And then you're looking at perhaps Goff or Fernandez, or even Bencic or Ostapenko in the quarterfinals. I don't know. I'm just not sure about Rybakina at the moment. I haven't been sure about her for most of the season, to be honest. So for me, I'm looking at Q3, and I'm looking at Anisimova. Obviously, we're going to have a 2-point each way bet on her, and I'm going to have a 0.5 point each way on Mukova at $20, and that should really do it. I mean, it's tricky. This time of year is a difficult time of year because, people are, long seasons, either sort of they've had injuries, coming back from injuries. It's a tough one. And, other side of the world as well. So there are a lot of factors that come into it. But I think Anisimova is the safest bet at $7.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm going to go in with Andreeva as well. 2 for me, Anisimova and Andreeva, and you're joining me with Anisimova, and we're going to go Mukova.
Yeah. So that's the outright market. We're going to have a look at a few matches now. We're going to start off Anastasija Sevastova against Kimberly Birrell. These two were at the US Open. They were both well beaten in the first round. Very tough assignments, though. Sevastova faced Ekaterina Alexandrova, and Birrell was up against Anisimova. Sevastova's -137, Birrell +112. The spread's 1.5 games, totals 20.5. As we mentioned, Sevastova was a runner-up back in 2018. She had a good run to the last 16 in Montreal. She beat Magdalenette and Jessica Pegula, but then fell to Naomi Osaka. Birrell had a really good start to the year. She won main draw matches at Indian Wells and Miami after coming through qualification. Hasn't won too many matches lately, but she hasn't been on the wrong end of any shock. She tends to beat the players she should, and she does tend to get past the first round in these 1,000s. Montreal was an exception, but she fell to Victoria Mboko, who went on to win the thing. And Sevastova's not winning this tournament. I'm torn between backing Birrell on the money line and the handicap. It's just a lean, but I just think Sevastova, she's not getting any younger. And I think Birrell is quite solid and consistent. So I'd give the Australian a chance here. Any view, Nigel?
Not really. I think so. I looked at a lot of matches, and there was I thought they were all quite tricky, really. So I looked at this one, and I swiftly moved on. I didn't really have much of an opinion, actually, to be fair.
Well, you do have an opinion on the next one. Ashlyn Krueger against Maria Sakkari. I definitely don't have an opinion. I thought this was too hard because they're two players in pretty poor form of late. Krueger is -103, Sakkari -122. Spread's just half a game and totals 21.5. Krueger fell to Evelise in her opener in Seoul. Sakkari lost her opener in Guadalajara to Elsa Giacomo, a case of what might have been for us on the show. Krueger reached the Abu Dhabi final. It was back in February, but she's done very little since. I think she needs it a bit quicker than this. But Sakkari is so inconsistent. I said I couldn't have a bet on this one, but Nigel, I think you might have one.
Well, I've gone with Ashlyn Krueger, and this my official play. Nothing, because there's nothing I've seen from Ashlyn Krueger that suggests to me that she's going to be back to the form that she showed at the start of the year. It's to do with the fact that Sakkari's performances and her stats in the last couple of matches have been absolutely shocking. It's the end of a year, a long year for Sakkari. I mean, this girl, Krueger, is 11 years junior. So that's an advantage over a long period of time. It's been a long season. Sakkari slumped down the ranking. She was always consistently around about the top 16 in the world. She dropped down to just inside the top 60. Ashlyn Krueger is 11 spots higher than her. And although that Krueger is having a bad bit of a run of it, she's a player moving in. These two players are moving in totally opposite directions over the next 18 months or so. Krueger didn't play well against Alycia, but Alycia is a decent player, but the performance wasn't great. She also got beat by Christiane in the second round at the US Open, but Christiane's been playing quite well, actually. But you don't take nothing away from Krueger. She did beat Sophie Kenin in round one, which is a big win for her. But Sakkari, I mean, the warning signs were there for me at the US Open when Meyer absolutely blitzed Sakkari in that match. I mean, the first set took 25 minutes. Sakkari served 13 double faults in that match in a 6-2, 6-1, 6-1, 6-2 defeat against Meyer. And that was Meyer wasn't in the best of form coming into that tournament, obviously. But Sakkari was absolutely diabolical. And then last time out against Giacomo, I mean, she was a big underdog, Giacomo. I think she was plus 185. Well, she absolutely annihilated her. 6-2, 6-1. And if you look at the statistics on that match, it's embarrassing. I mean, she served, her first serve percentage was 52.6% for Sakkari in that match. She didn't have one break point on her opponent's serve, and her performances was of someone who's just basically at the end of the year and having the time off. And that was in Monterey, which was only a couple of weeks back as well. So she's not playing well. Her second serve points won were only 37%. It was just a really, really bad performance, and it wasn't a coincidence. That was two back-to-back terrible performance from Sakkari in those two matches. Bet Rivers are currently minus 103. Krueger make Sakkari minus 122. I would probably bet decent money that Krueger will not start at minus 103. I believe that these two might flip-flop in the terms of the prices. So I believe there'll be a market negativity for Sakkari because those stats in those last two matches are so poor. Krueger is the better player at this stage of her career to where Sakkari is, and I can see the Greek star probably playing another couple of years, and that might be the end of her in terms of a top-notch, top 100 player, because she's moving out of that sort of rank at an alarming pace, and Krueger is a player that's on the up. A lot of people in America think a lot of Krueger. I spoke to Mitch Michaels a couple of times about her on Betting Weekly Live. He likes what he sees from her, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to take on someone 11 years your junior at the end of the year who seems to be like she's had enough. Performances aren't good enough in the last couple of matches, so I'm going to go for Ashlyn Krueger at minus 103 just for one unit, but I think Krueger will win against Sakkari.
Yeah, I saw some of that Sakkari match against Giacomo, and yeah, it was weird. It was a strange because Giacomo was mixing it up quite a lot. She was chucking in a few moon balls, and Sakkari just looked absolutely clueless. It was a little bit sad to watch, actually, because, you know, she should have won the French Open going back when Krejcikova won it. That was her tournament to win, because she beat Swiatek, and then they played out the semi-final where both players were trying to choke as hard as possible. The Sakkari really should have won that tournament. And that was her chance. And yeah, she's been, you know, she's won 1000s. She's done a lot in the game, but this year has been really, really disappointing. So that's your first official play, Ashlyn Krueger to beat Maria Sakkari on the money line at minus 103. We got I think just one or perhaps two. We got one to look at now. Sonay Kartal against Alycia Parks. Kartal minus 240, Parks plus 188. The spread is 3.5 games, totals 21.5. Kartal is down to 81 in the world, but that's because last year she won the title in Monastir. So she's lost those points. That was replaced by Sao Paulo on the calendar. She has struggled a bit since Wimbledon, but she did push Emma Navarro close in the Billie Jean King Cup last week. Whereas Alycia Parks has lost her last 4 matches. That was after reaching the semi-finals in Monterey in quicker conditions than this. And I think on these slower courts, I think just style of play, I think Parks is really going to struggle here because Kartal gets everything back. She makes you play the extra shot. And that's when Parks makes errors, and she makes lots of them. I think if Kartal just plays a normal game, the mistakes will come from the Parks racket, and I think that Britain's going to win comfortably. Straight sets for me is interesting at a shade of plus money. But I think what I'm going to go for here is, you can see the spread is 3.5 games. I think I'm going to go Kartal minus 4.5 games. which is plus 120. I think she's going to. I don't think Parks is going to be able to handle her at all. So I like Kartal to win. So I'm just going to have a point on Kartal minus 4.5 games at plus 120. I think Nigel, in these conditions, I think Parks is she's just got no hope.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, Sonay Kartal's obviously a player that is doing well at the moment, moving up in the rankings as well. I like players that moving up in the rankings, and in these conditions, I think you're probably right. But we'll see how we go. I mean, the next match I'm just going to talk about, Rory. I don't know what's happened, but I'm just looking at the Bet Rivers website, but they've taken that match off, and they've also taken it away from some of the websites as well. So the reason I was going to mention it was because Magdalena Net, both of these have got injury problems. Bianca Andreescu obviously hasn't played since Montreal, where she had to pull out of a second round match against Mira Andreeva, which was quite a while ago. It was in July. And Magdalena Net had a leg injury in her, or maybe a thigh injury it was, in her match against Arango. Arango won the first set 6-love literally the other day in her match against Magdalena Net, and then 6-love down, and Magdalena Net was forced to retire at 32 years of age, which Magdalena Net is. I don't know, I didn't think the recovery time would be quick enough for her to recover. I mean, that was only in Guadalajara like last week, and she lost a set 6-love. She was a minus $3 favourite to win that match, and she lost her set 6-love and had a leg injury, thigh injury, called the physio and couldn't compete. She had to travel in from Guadalajara all the way over to Beijing. I didn't think she'd be able to play, and I wanted to get with Andreescu here minus 1.5 at plus minus 121. But I think, just judging by what I can see, I think one of them has obviously retired. I think it would probably be Magdalena Net, so pulled out in the match. So
it could well be Andreescu.
It could be any of them. It could be any of them. Yeah, but I was going to take the chance on Andreescu because I thought that Lynette's injury and the performance in that defeat was that such that Andreescu might come back and be able to give it a run around. But it looks as though there's something that's happened, so we'll leave that one alone. Just the one bet for me.
Okay, so no bet. I thought. With both of them, that would be tricky. Just given both of them with their injury record, just thought it was a match to avoid. I think you mentioned earlier Katie Boulter against Hailey Baptiste, which was a match I almost wanted to look at, and I just talked myself out of it because I thought Kartal Parks was a bit more easy. But you said Boulter's got a 3-0 record over Baptiste, which I found quite interesting. Because Boulter's been in really poor form. But she did play all right at the Billie Jean King Cup. I started looking at the match, and Baptiste her form's just tailed off recently. And I thought Baptiste was a player who would have needed it quicker. It wasn't a match I had a strong opinion on because I was looking at it and I was thinking about Boulter. I think she is a narrow favourite.
She's minus 125, but Baptiste has never taken a set off her. All 3 matches have been 2 sets to love. They were a bit of a while ago, 2020 and 2023, the last 2. But if you go your head-to-heads, Boulter's definitely the bet on that one.
Yeah, I mean, Baptiste is much improved since the last 2 years. But I thought Boulter showed enough in the Billie Jean King Cup to suggest, because she's had a pretty dismal few months, but I thought she showed enough to suggest she might be on the right track. But yeah, it's a couple of interesting matches in the first round before the seeds get involved. The fact that Boulter's playing in the first round shows you how much her ranking has fallen recently. Because she was comfortably in the top 30 earlier in the year, and now she's I think she's lower in the rankings in Baptiste at the moment. I think they're both in the 50s. But yeah, that's an interesting match to keep an eye on. Of course, you can watch all the matches live streamed on Bet Rivers. You can bet in play. So that might be one to do that on. Nigel, that's pretty much it. That's the WTA show. You've obviously got what's going with the ATP, because they've got this weird time of year with the timings of tournaments, isn't it?
Yeah, there's 2 tournaments this week, which I'll be recording with Sean more or less straight after this show. So that'll be dropping later on today on the channel as well. Europa League football this midweek as well. James Easton has been on fantastic form. He'll be back on Betting Weekly Live, 11 o'clock Eastern Time every day, Monday through to Friday. Betting Weekly Premier League and Betting Weekly Extra Time on Thursday. And the American guys, Doug and all the team over there, Fast Break, Hardball and The Edge have all been on fire. Cash-in tickets pretty much every show the last couple of weeks. So, everything's happening. And obviously the newsletter. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter and the Insider. Ryder Cup week this week. And Simon Holden will be on hand on our Instagram account at Because We Win, giving all the best bets on the Ryder Cup as well.
Come on, Europe. Yes. Looking forward to that. Always one of my favourite sporting events of the year, the Ryder Cup. Well, every 2 years, but one of my favourite sporting events, full stop. But that's it from Betting Weekly WTA. Good luck with your picks. Let us know of your picks on YouTube. Give us your comments below the line. And hopefully we can cash a couple of tickets this week because it's not been going too well for us of late. But yeah, hopefully we can start turning our form around and finish the year strongly. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon on Betting Weekly WTA.